watching PowerNation. Today on Carcass, junk mail was such a blast that we had to bring it back. We have a few more goodies to add, making it the ultimate wheeler.
We also fabricate some new doors for added safety on the trails, and then take it out for some more adventures. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Carcass. Today we've got Project Junk Mail, our 1978 DJ5 Jeep, back in the shop. And this thing started out on a down-on-its-luck mail delivery vehicle, and we've turned it into this. After we stripped it down to just the frame rails, we got to work. We built our very own 4-link suspension, assembled a set of 1-ton axles, dropped in the freshly rebuilt drivetrain, and we rounded that all off with a paint scheme that paid tribute to the mail Jeep's roots. Then we headed out to put all of our hard work to the test.
And today, it's all about improvements. You know, when you build a rig like this, you just build with the money that you have available. And then when you gain a little bit more money, like when that stimulus check hits, you can rush out and support the economy and buy some Jeep parts and throw it at your trail rig. That's what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to convert this thing into fuel injection, take care of some steering upgrades, and build a set of custom tube doors to help us feel a little bit safer when we're out on the trails. And Jimmy, let's get started.
Let's do it.
For the fuel injection setup underneath the hood of our Jeep, we went with an EFI Master Kit that we picked up from FiTech. Comes with everything you need to install it underneath the hood. You've got some hoses and some fittings, a little fuel filter here. You've got your handheld controller that helps you watch your vital signs, and your throttle body setup. Now, we went with the Go Street 400 horsepower throttle body, and it works well with vehicles ranging from 150 to about 400 horsepower. And since our Jeep's got about 250 horse, this thing will work perfectly. Now, another big part of their setup is their force fuel module. This works in conjunction with your factory fuel pump, and what that does is puts fuel into this module. This module converts it into enough fuel pressure to control the injectors in the throttle body, and you're all set to go. Like I said, super simple to install. Where we're going to start is right here with the module. Okay, so to mount the module, we could go back here on the firewall, but it gets a little close to the exhaust manifold. We could go down in some of these little crevices, but it could make it hard to plumb. So we think we're going to mount it right here on the shock hoop. Now you can mount this completely vertical or horizontal, and we're going to go kind of halfway in between. We'll mount it right here. So all I got to do is just make a couple mounts. We'll get this thing installed. All right, let's make our bracket about 3 1/4. Using some 1-inch flat strap, I'll cut some pieces, drill some holes, and weld it all together. All right, so now we'll just bolt these brackets onto this module, and then we'll just weld everything in the Jeep. Okay, so we'll just get this set in place here on the shock hoop, and then we'll grab the welder, weld it in. All right. Okay, we'll get rid of a couple fuel lines, get this carburetor out of the way, and we'll set our throttle body in place. All right, now all we do is set our throttle body into place, and it bolts right up to the existing flange that the carburetor sat on. All right, so that's the 2 major parts of our fuel injection system installed. So now what I have to do is hook up some lines that go from the module to the throttle body, and then we'll run one from here back to the fuel cell. For our return line, we went with braided stainless steel to give us a little more protection underneath the Jeep. With the return line installed, we'll hook up a couple quick connections. All right, one of the last things we have to do is install an oxygen sensor because our EFI needs to see an air-fuel ratio in order for it to work correctly. And FiTech sends this little adapter, so all we have to do is drill a hole into our exhaust, clamp it down with the supplied clamps, and that just means no welding involved. All right, so we don't have a lot of room down here on the exhaust because it's so short, and the idea is to stay far enough away from the manifold before we get to the muffler. And we want to put this on a flat, not any type of a curve. So I think the spot to be is going to be to install this right about there. Using a step drill, I'll drill a hole in our exhaust and install the sensor bung and our sensor. Like that. And all we have to do is just plug in the connector. All right. That wraps up everything underneath the hood. Now we'll go inside, connect the handheld, and fire this thing up. So with our handheld plugged in, I got to do the initial setup, like tell it we've got 6 cylinders, 258 cubic inches, and we'll set the idle speed to about 850. And this thing should fire right up. Like that. And it's perfect. So now all we have to do is a couple more things to button this thing up, and then we're gonna head right back out on the trails.
Coming up, we built some custom tube doors for junk mail, giving us some added protection. At this point, Jeremy's finished up our EFI conversion, so what I'm going to start doing is working on a set of tube doors for our Jeep. The last time when we were on the trail, we were lacking some side protection in the rare event that we tipped this thing on a rock. So what I envision here is coming off our roll cage bar with a set of hinges that make the door easily removable, come straight across, kind of contour the body, and then go back across, maybe put a plate in the center to make it look cool, and really that starts with cutting some tube. I'll start by cutting out some 1.5" DOM for the door. Then I'll cut out the chassis side of the hinges and put 2 90-degree bends in each one. All right, so I've got 1/2 of the hinges cut out and bent, and what I did was I mounted them on a piece of 3/8 rod. And what I'm doing here is just making sure that they stay in alignment when I go to tack these onto our roll cage bar. So I'll just prep this tube, place our front half hinges here, and that way I can put the other side of the hinges on this tube, hang the front tube, and then build the rest of the door from here instead of trying to float the whole door in here and then try to mount it later. So I just got to prep this and then tack. With 1/2 of the hinges tacked in, I'll mount the door side of the hinges using a couple bolts. Okay. All right, just gotta tack it. All right, it doesn't bind or anything, so we can start building doors. About 29. When making tube doors like this, it's just a lot of cutting and notching until you get to the desired design that you want. All right, 2 more tubes, 1 down, 1 across, and then we'll figure out something in the middle. I just gotta make sure this tube is level with the top one, and we'll tack it in. All right, so the door is almost done, and we have one more tube to make. And actually on the door itself, I'm gonna put a notch in this tube going down. That way we can run a tube from up here down to here, and it'll stick out a little bit on the bottom, just like this side. All right, so we got this end fitting pretty good. The only thing now is notching this tube so that, you know, it can slide up farther and meet this one, get a good weld around it, and then we'll figure out something for the front. All right, with that tube in place, we can start working on the cover. For the door cover, we're using 1/8" plate for added protection. All right, that looks like it fits pretty good, but I'm not gonna put this on yet until I can weld the tubes all the way around. So for right now, I'm just gonna get working on the latch, and then we'll finish the door. For the latch, we're going with an AutoLoc Bear Claw that we got from Summit Racing. These are pretty universal. You can use them for a hot rod or a Jeep. And I just got to mount this one on a plate, weld it to the door itself, and then I have to make a plate to mount on the inside to mount the pin. So once that's done, this thing will be fully operational. All right, let's see. All right, so the only thing left is to weld this whole thing up and give it a fresh coat of paint.
Up next, we take our steering to the next level.
What do you think?
Dude, I love the doors.
Cool.
They work perfectly on the Jeep. So that's one thing we took care of. The other thing is we switched this over to fuel injection, so we took care of that. Now the last thing we're gonna do is some steering upgrades. Now, if we ever move over to a bigger set of wheels and tires, it's a good idea for us to do some steering work. So we're gonna be moving away from the hydro-assisted steering and go to a full hydro setup.
And something that you get with a 4-link and crossover steering setup is bump steer. And inherently, bump steer isn't a problem, especially in a rock crawling situation, because you're going so slow that you have full control over your vehicle. But if we were to take something like this down the highway, that can quickly turn into a dangerous situation. So full hydraulic steering eliminates bump steer. And like you said, if we want to go to a bigger set of wheels and tires, that will eliminate any potential issues.
Now we already have PSC steering underneath the Jeep, so a lot of the parts underneath the hood are interchangeable. So it's just an easy solution to use PSC again. But what I do have to do is get rid of this assisted ram down here in the gearbox, and then we have to go to the full hydro ram, and you have a solution on how to mount that, right?
Yep, I'm gonna cut it on the plasma table.
Cool, well I'm gonna go grab some tools and I'm gonna start getting rid of some parts.
All right.
We'll loosen up some of the fittings on the hydraulic ram to get them out of the way. Then we'll get started on the drag link and the tie rod bar. All right, now we can get the gearbox out of the way. Get this heavy thing out of the way.
All right, so while Jeremy's been taking apart the Jeep, I've been designing the bracket for our hydraulic cylinder. So I'll cut it out on the table here, take it over to the Jeep, tack it on, and see if we can make this thing work. For our cylinder bracket, we're using 1/4" steel to make sure this thing stays where we want it to. Once it's cut out, I'll grind the paint off the axle and start tacking the pieces into place.
Now the hydraulic assisted steering we had underneath the Jeep used this smaller cylinder in conjunction with our steering gearbox. But now that we're going to this full hydro setup, we're going to be using a 2.5-inch bore 8-inch stroke cylinder, and that works in conjunction with this orbital. Now this is kind of the brains of the operation. It accepts the input from our steering wheel and turns it into a hydraulic pressure, and that moves the ram to the left and to the right. Now we got all of this from PSC, and it came as a kit, everything from our fluid, hoses and fittings, and it even came with all of our steering. Now Jimmy's already got the mount made for the cylinder, so that's where we're going to start. Wow, perfect timing, Jimmy. You ready for the cylinder?
Yeah, let's get it in there, at least tack it.
Hold it up here for you.
All right, ready?
Yeah, that looks close.
With the mounting blocks tacked in, we'll remove the hydraulic cylinder and permanently weld everything up. Then finish it off with a couple coats of paint.
That looks pretty good.
Thanks, yeah. I already took some measurements for the tie rods, so I'm gonna go get to making those. It looks like you're gonna mount that.
Yeah, I'll set the orbital up here. I think it's gonna go up on the inside chassis rail, so.
Sweet.
We'll get that in there somehow.
I'll let you get to it.
And so I'll set the orbital up here on the inside of the frame rail. So I just got to kind of mark it. We'll grind all this paint off. We'll tack the bracket in. We'll throw on a couple tacks to start, then fully weld it up and paint it to match. We'll install our orbital, hook up our steering, and connect our hydraulic lines.
All right, dude, I got some tie rods for you.
Perfect. I'll get those installed and then just top the whole system off with fluid.
Sweet, and I'm gonna bend up a skid plate so we can protect everything we just did, and then we'll be ready to hit the trails.
Sounds awesome.
With all of our new additions, we take junk mail back to the proving grounds. All right, everybody, we're back out here at Adventure Off-Road Park for the second test of our Jeep. We've got full hydraulic steering on this thing now, a couple other upgrades, EFI, and we got some doors on it to give us a little more confidence. And honestly, any day that we can get out of the shop, it's good for us to take. So let's see what we can do.
Yeah, let's have some fun, right?
Yeah.
So there wasn't anything wrong with the Jeep before, but you know, you can always do improvements, right?
Yeah.
Or not improvements, I think upgrades is a better term there.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of natural going from a box setup with a, you know, ram assist to a full hydro. That's just what you would do if you're trying to get a little bit more out of your rig.
Right, right.
So, I mean, so far this thing, like, it's just a little easier to drive probably.
Yeah, 100%. We're gonna take it out of gear. We're just gonna let the gravity do our thing right now, because she's a little slick out here yet.
Yeah.
Look at that. Again, no issues. Just a walk in the park, man. Walk in the park. And here, look at this super tight turning. And it just, whoop, right around. Dude, that's just good old-fashioned fun right there.
And EFI too, like, there's ways to get a carburetor to work off-road with the weird angles and stuff, but it's just get in this thing, turn the key, and you're gone.
Right. And I'm barely touching the gas. Like, the idle's not searching.
Yeah.
It's just solid steady. It's at 884 RPM.
Yeah. And no hesitations.
Right.
You know?
Just walking. You know, you really couldn't ask for a better day.
Nope.
Not to be outside wheeling, that's for sure.
Yeah, shaded by the trees.
Right. I mean, AOP is such a great place to come anyways.
Yeah, there's a lot of different terrain. Really, there's something for whatever rig you got.
Right. You know, this is different than what we did last time. We're in the same park, and yet it's different, which is just nuts. Like a little tricky here. Let's see what happens. There, that's all that took.
Yeah.
Oh, I spoke too soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah, just like that.
There you go.
Oh, simple enough. Now let's try this one.
Yeah.
God, this may be a little trickier because we got wet tires now.
Yeah.
So we want to go forward.
Go forward, yeah. Go, 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 yeah!
Good frickin' spotting, man.
Yeah.
That was perfect. Dude, we sat, and that was 45 degrees at least. That was a heck of an incline.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that's good right there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, body damage. Whoops. Whoops.
Little tree rash, all right.
My bad. My bad.
You can't ask for much more than that. And if you guys want to see more of what we're doing, go to PowerNationTV.com and be sure to check out our build pages where you can see the square body tow truck, the Rally Honda, and more of this Jeep.
We're super close to the truck, but I say we hit a couple more trails and then we can call it a day.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because you know it is doing exactly what we wanted to do right now.
Yeah.
Just creepy crawling through the woods.